Fantasy is my favorite and preferred genre for a multitude of reasons. Not only does it let you fully utilize your imagination, but it also allows you to tell stories in ways you can't with any other genre. Beyond that, however, fantasy also introduces a lot of concepts that most other genres don't. Magic is one such concept, strange worlds and cultures are another. Another concept, of course, is that of fantasy creatures. Dark and mysterious beasts that add whole new dimensions to any story. I've always enjoyed fantasy creatures and have often wished that more stories included a variety of fantasy beasts for us to read about. So today I thought I'd give you a list of my top 5 favorite fantasy creatures. Some of these are very well known, while others are from specific series and not found elsewhere. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Dragons. Dragons are the classic creature that most people think of when they think of fantasy. Dragons are a creature deeply embedded in the human psyche, and you will find examples of these creatures from almost any culture on Earth. From ancient legends to modern novels, you can find dragons in almost any form. What I really like about dragons is not only how cool and powerful they tend to be, but also the sheer variety you can find them in. You will find dragons as small as the palm of your hand or as large as mountains. You'll find dragons with little more cognitive ability than your everyday lizard, and you'll find dragons wiser and more intelligent than even the oldest wizard. Dragons integrate very well with fantasy and can find a home in almost any story. In the Song of Ice and Fire, you'll find bestial dragons with very minimal intelligence, but with unparalleled ferocity and power. In the Cosmere, you'll find dragons with incredible intelligence and magical ability, though we have yet to see the full potential of their power. I think dragons will likely rank high for almost anyone who enjoys fantasy, and I'm no exception. Dragons are awesome, and if given the chance to have one of my own, I'd absolutely jump at the chance. Leviathans. I've always had a fascination with the deep and dark waters of the ocean, and even more so, I've had a fascination with the idea of gigantic monsters who dwell within their depths. Similar to dragons, leviathans come in many different shapes and sizes, though the original legend from the holy scriptures of the Jewish faith describes it as a sea serpent. In more modern fiction, the term leviathan has taken on a meaning to encompass a wider variety of creatures. The most notable of these would be the famous kraken from pirate stories. Often depicted as a gigantic octopus or squid able to sink entire ships, the kraken is likely the most well-known leviathan in modern media. There are others, however. Other common depictions include gigantic crustaceans, whales, fish, and eels. Some leviathans are even depicted as draconic in appearance, though more in theme with being an underwater beast. I think I'm drawn to the idea of leviathans because of how mysterious and dangerous they seem. It definitely has that Lovecraftian horror feel to it, and I'm pretty sure the mysterious nature of the ocean has a lot to do with that. Regardless, leviathans are cool as heck and absolutely deserve a spot on this list. Vampires and werewolves. So technically these are two different creatures, but I couldn't find a collective name for both that described humans that transform into some kind of monster. Regardless, I'm lumping them together for the purpose of this video. I think it's fairly obvious why these two are on the list. Vampires and werewolves have both been popular for hundreds of years. The first mention of vampires are from the 1700s, and werewolves as a concept has been referenced even as far back as ancient Greece and Rome. So just like dragons and leviathans, these creatures have been in the human psyche for a very long time, and this resulted in a large variety of myths and legend to spring up about them. I've always liked the idea of this dark magical curse that transforms a person into a monster. It takes the concept of an evil magical beast and merges it with the concept of a normal person very well. When afflicted with vampirism and lycanthropy, most depictions show that a large part of the human element is lost. Vampires become more cunning and cruel, but lose their compassion and empathy. They see humans as little more than prey and often consider themselves as apex predators meant to hunt down lowly humans. And if a human is lucky enough, they might be chosen to join the ranks and become a vampire themselves, though only if the vampire in question decides to do so. Werewolves, on the other hand, are far more bestial. When transformed, they will often forget all of their humanity and fully become a savage beast. They will kill whoever is in their way, whether it's a stranger or a close family member. They live for little more than the kill and wish only to feed when they are transformed. In some stories, even the slightest scratch from a werewolf is enough to inflict the curse on another, and the werewolf rarely cares about who they turn. I think it's becoming clear that a lot of my favorite creatures are often dark and deadly, and with the following two examples you'll see even more of that. I've been speaking mostly about creatures that have their roots in human mythology and folklore, but the next two on this list are unique in that each comes from a specific modern fantasy novel series. Chasm Fiends. Chasm Fiends from the Stormlight Archive series have to be some of my favorite fantasy creatures out there. Brandon Sanderson somehow managed to make something new and interesting, but made it well enough for me to instantly consider it one of my top favorites. We see Chasm Fiends mostly in the first two books of the Stormlight Archive series. They are gigantic multi-legged creatures with a thick and almost impenetrable exoskeleton. They, like many creatures on the world of Roshar, are crustacean in nature, though they do not live in the ocean. Chasm Fiends get their name from their primary habitat, the chasms within the rocky crags of the Shattered Plains. In these chasms, where the earth was split millennia ago, these large creatures come to breed and pupate. Because of their size, the Chasm Fiends have to bond with a specific type of spren that helps lessen their weight and allows them to grow larger. In the latest Stormlight Archive book, there's even evidence that these creatures can be tamed, so that instantly made them jump up on the list for me. They take concepts from dragons and leviathans and mix it up with a lot of Sanderson originality that I love so much. I can't wait to see more of them in the coming books, and given the way Rhythm of War ended, we very likely will. Dementors. Harry Potter was likely a very central story in the lives of many of us growing up. For me, it was the first fantasy series I ever read and the first fantasy world I lost myself in. J.K. Rowling introduced many new creatures and concepts in her wizarding world, one of which is the creatures known as Dementors. Dementors are manifestations of pure, unfiltered fear and despair. They feed on your happiest memories, leaving only your worst behind. Their very presence chills the air to below freezing, and being anywhere close to them will leave you feeling completely hopeless and devoid of any happiness. They cannot be killed and can only be warded off with a very specific spell. Nobody really knows how they breed or are formed, but some theorize that if enough Dementors are in an area to the point where there is absolutely no happiness or joy left, then they will multiply, almost like a fungus. We don't know how sapient or intelligent they are. They're clearly able to sense and taste fear and can communicate to an extent when hunting for prey. They also seem to be able to be controlled if supplied with enough people to feed on. Rowling created these creatures as an almost physical representation of depression, and I think she did an amazing job with it. They can feed on your memories, and when you're finally left with no more happy memories left, they'll use their special ability on you known as the Dementor's Kiss. When you receive the Dementor's Kiss, the creature essentially sucks out your soul, leaving your body an empty husk. As you can see, I really enjoy dark and dangerous creatures, and Dementors are right in that demographic. But that has been my list of my top 5 favorite fantasy creatures. What is your top 5? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, that's been it from me for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Raven, and I'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody.